And good morning and welcome to class. I believe this is 7. Welcome Chris, David, and Jay. Today we're going to be focused on typefaces. And if they're Chris, David, or Jay, if you have any questions, I haven't graded this week's assignment yet. I was catching up on work that was past due. So I will get to this week's grades later today. Okay, any other questions about anything? Okay, good. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to get started here. We are going to be finished by a little before 1 today. So hopefully everybody will get exactly what they need taken care of here. So let me close some of these. Too many windows open on my side. Sometimes with Macs, that can be a little confusing because it shows a window and it's like, what? Why is that open? Anyway, not a big deal. Today, this was class 6, so I can close this. This was me getting to the grades, and I'll close that. And that's me on my REPL. So let's go here to modules. And okay, today we're going to focus not only using cascading style sheets, but focusing on using cascading style sheets and specifically applying typography to those style sheets. So there are a variety of approaches that can be used. And of course, there's a lot to talk about when it comes to typography. We have a full semester class in the graphic design department just dealing with typography. I find it to be a very interesting subject. I'm going to give you a very brief overview. I'm going to show you where I have the resources for it, and I'm going to focus on demonstrating how you can get fonts and then convert them to web fonts. Okay, so specifically what you'll be doing for next week is you're going to adding additional CSS rules, properties, and rule selectors. And you're going to also be creating a third page, pardon me, your behavior page. Okay, the behavior page will do pretty much what it sounds like it's going to do, which is talk about the animal of your choice, the behaviors that animal is known for, whether it be, you know, a tiger hunting at night or elephant stampeding when there are villagers taking over their domain, that kind of thing. Whatever the behavior of your animal is what you're going to be focused on for the behaviors page. The thing that's most important, though, is you're going to add at least 2 web fonts using the CSS rule @font_face. And I'm going to demonstrate that rule. And you're going to use the fonts that you have downloaded or point to, because you can do it either way. You can, you're going to use the fonts that you point to or download to style elements, including your text color, background color, and apply these styles via your CSS file. You also want to include at least 1 image graphic and related text related to the behavioral characteristics of your animal. Any questions so far? Okay, so the specifics that you see here, adding typography and text control via CSS to your midterm project, goes into the details of this process, where you're going to use 2 embedded web fonts. Now, embedded can also be linked to, because embedded is when you're downloading those fonts that you've used a font generator to create, and then you put them in a folder in your site, and then your style sheet points to those web fonts. Linked to is where you go to like a font repository like Google has, and that's the one I'm going to demonstrate with. And you use the same CSS rule at font face, but instead what you're doing is you're pointing to a repository in Google's storage facility where you can then access those fonts to your web page. So those are the two different styles that we can examine. You're going to use the following CSS properties in some of your rules, as I already said: font family, color, meaning text color, background color, and border, right? You're going to also make sure that you've used a class, and remember, classes apply on an as-needed basis. For example, if you have an image, and maybe let's say you have 5 images on a page, you don't want to apply a rule to the IMG tag. Instead, you'd make a class rule that makes that, and you'll call that class like float right. That takes the image, that makes any object that has that class applied to it float right. So if you have an image, you might say IMG space class equal float right, and that one image will float right, but not all of the other images. So that's why we do something like that. We use classes so we can apply a rule to a tag that normally doesn't get that rule. Okay, any questions about that? Okay, so then of course you use ID selectors, and that, as I said last week, is something that would be applying to like a section or to an article, to a div, something with a big block on a page, and that normally applies one time. A descendant or child selector, as we saw last week, is when you might have a list item as part of a list, whether it's an ordered or an unordered list, and you want that list to look different than it would someplace else. So in theory, you can say to an unordered list, apply a class to it. But if you, but what is more common is if you have something like the nav tag, and inside the nav tag is an unordered list, and you want styling applied to the elements in the unordered list and the list item elements in the unordered list, but only when that list item or that unordered list appears as part of that container called nav, right? So that's the example of descendant selector. So rule 4 here, or homework instruction 4, using these following CSS rule selectors in some of your rules, those are the explanations for those types of rules. Any questions about any of those rules? Okay, so then you're going to create a draft prototype of your website. You've already done your home page. You've already done your habitat page. You're up to your behavior page, and you're modifying your style sheet this week, right? Easiest way to do this is take module 5, make a copy of it, upload it to REPL. You can also even just change on your REPL the folder and call it module 6, okay? And you still have, and you can leave your copy, make a copy on your local device, your computer. So that way, you're not using up any additional space on REPL. As we saw over the last couple of weeks, especially with including video, when you do include video, it uses up a lot of the storage space that REPL gives you for a free site, okay? Then you're going to validate your HTML page using the W3C validator. Although most of you have downloaded the web developer tool that my mouse is over right now. I am sharing my screen, right? Yeah, okay. Thank you. So there's my web developer toolbar, and that goes straight to the validator. What I noticed today is that the gateway was not responding. Sometimes the validator gets overloaded. So before I dive into talking more about how we get access to web fonts, I want you to know that this video here, which is, I believe, 18 minutes long, let's see how long it is, 16 minutes and 31 seconds. This video goes in great detail. And when I created the video, of course, I stopped, I took out most of my, ums and ahs and made sure that it was very, very focused. So if I'm a little confusing sometimes during just kind of lecture, be assured that the short video is very focused and will go step by step for all of the things you need to do to find fonts, choose fonts, generate font families from fonts that you have, and then link to those font families. Okay, so if I get a little, because when I'm in the midst of lecture, I don't always, nail it as focused as in a video like this. Okay, so the other thing I want to point out here is that each week I add and modify the content resources. This week I have a link to the Google Fonts, to the Fontello font generator, to the Font Swirl font generator, and then to an icon font generator in case you're interested in icons. The last thing I'm going to say in terms of the submission directions for this week's assignment is down here after you're creating module 7. Yeah, I said module 6, it's module 7. After you create your module 7 folder on your computer or change the name of the one in your REPL, what I want you to do is once you're in REPL, click the run button at the top of the code panel and then copy that root REPL from your browser, because this will allow me to see all your REPL files and help me troubleshoot some problems. Because what I've noticed is sometimes people will run into a problem and they'll send me the link to, sometimes they don't send me the link, but when they do, they send me the link to their page that has the problems. But if it's, for example, a missing image, I don't see the directory, I don't see the content of the root folder, so I don't know really what's missing. So going forward, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you send me the link to your root, and that way I can more easily troubleshoot any problems that you've got. Okay, any questions?
So that's going to be the link to our My REPL page, essentially?
Yes.
Okay.
To your My REPL page, exactly. Because when that happens, I see the folder kind of the way you see it. And then I could see what's in there. It makes it a lot easier for me to troubleshoot it. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to leave student view here for a second. I'm going to go down to here in the instructions because I saw that I said one thing wrong. Modify the index page. Just the index page. It's not within anything. Oh, edit. Because that could confuse people. What do you mean within the class 5 panel? Modify the index page so it links to home in the module 7. Okay, and then we'll save that. Okay, so now I'm going to go over a couple of things specifically having to do with typography, and then I'm going to show you how we access content. So right here, I'm going to download this, and we're going to take a look at a couple of things having to do with typography. We're not going to go into excruciating detail because that would take the entirety of the class. So we're talking about typography and web fonts. Also, you're going to need to refer to chapter 8 for a couple of questions in the quiz. You're going to be watching this video on typefaces as part of the next 2 weeks discussion. So it's going to give you a lot of really useful information there. And like I said earlier, we have full semester classes on typography, a super important subject, not only for web designers, but for any kind of graphic designer. Any kind of marketer has to be familiar with a lot of things related to typography. So we're not going to, the quick history you'll be able to read through, stonecutters, scribes out of papyrus, early Roman letter forms, the history of typography going back to China, and the creation of movable type around 1040 AD. And then Gutenberg, of course, created the Gutenberg press. So there's some links there to a really good article on the timeline in terms of the history of photography here on slide 11. And of course, you get to all of this from the Class 7 lectures, slides, and link. Right at the top there, it says lecture slides, so you can download the whole thing and step through it. It is a really interesting history, but since I always want to make sure that I am crystal clear on the step-by-step for the homework instruction, this is the kind of thing that you'll review much more on your own. Back in 1984, when Apple created the laser writer and the PostScript print first came out through Adobe, they started creating the characters that were called glyphs. They are still called glyphs, and they're essentially created by cubic Bezier curves. One of the things that's important about this is related to why Illustrator and why vector graphics are so important when it comes to typography. Because of the fact that a glyph is a set of Bezier curves, it is a vector shape that is infinitely scalable. So regardless of whether you're using a small font or a large font, it could look perfect no matter what size you're using. And that's and that's why it's very easy to take fonts, to shape them in all kinds of different ways, because they're essentially vector shapes. No pixels involved. Okay, then we get a little bit to the history of embedded web fonts. Up until that point, basically your web page was pointing to essentially your user's computer. And there were really only about 6 or 7 fonts that everybody had installed on their computer, guaranteed. 3 of them were serif fonts. That means they had the little decoration on them. And 3 of them were without decoration, sans serif fonts. And they would include Georgia, Times New Roman, Helvetica, Arial, a couple others that, you know, don't pop into my head. But you were really limited in terms of the typography that you could show on a web page. And of course, desktop graphic designers were very frustrated by that, because so much of what they did was informed by the typography that they used. So the programmers created the ability to embed web fonts using style sheets. Okay, and basically the idea is that by using style sheets, using the style sheet to point to web fonts, now you have a universe of fonts that you can point to, which is going to influence the viewer's feeling. It's going to set the tone for the design. It's going to inform the mood of your project. Okay, so here, for example, I'm sorry. Can you repeat that, please?
¿Quieres que le pregunte cuánto tiempo cree que va a durar?
I think he must be talking to somebody else. So I'll move on. So as you can see in the top left-hand corner where it says Montserrat, what type of font family would that be? Would that be serif or sans serif?
Sans serif.
That would be sans serif. That's right. And this one, you know, if there's a mood associated with it, well, you know, the assumption by the designers that looked at these font families said that that's a friendly font, right? Right below it, Sirius font is using Garamond, which is also, Garamond is not a sans serif. We can see it's got glyphs on the, it's got curlicues on the end of each of the fonts. So that's a decoration, and that makes it a serif font. It's got a serif on the end of it, right? And then to the right of that, you've got Klein slab serif font, which the emotion is silly. Finally, above it, we've got a different family. It's handwriting font. So there's serif, there's sans serif, but there's also handwriting as a family. Okay, and that one's using Signet Round. And the feeling with this kind of handwriting font is that it's fancy. So invitations to a fancy wedding would use something like that. Okay. Here is where you can see each element within a font that I'm not going to spend the time going over: stroke, stem, swash, foot, all of this stuff. This is pretty important stuff nonetheless. So you should familiarize yourself with certain things, especially things like ascenders and descenders, right? So if you have, or if you're building text and you need to push a set of letters to the ascender, you're pushing it towards the top of the character, where the descender is at the bottom of the character, right? And you've got, whoopsie, you've got joints, legs, arcs. Certainly serif is important. The foot, right, is an important element. The stem, the swash, which is really the decorative stroke that we talked about as well. So just being familiar with those principles is a good idea. Fonts and typefaces are often used interchangeably. Font is the physical embodiment. Typeface is the design, the way it looks, okay? You've got, in a character, you've got letters, characters, letters, numbers, and punctuation, right? Alternate characters, when you have non-standard letters or letters that you modified a character. Serif, a short line or stroke attached to or extending from the open end of a letter form. So that's the definition of a serif right there. Sans serif, there are no embellishment, literally without line, right? Italic is a slanted version of a typeface. Baseline is the imaginary line on which the letters are sitting. Cap line is the imaginary upper boundary. The X height is the height of the typeface's lowercase letters. So that's your X height. Tracking is the uniform amount of horizontal spacing between characters. So tracking refers to an entire line usually, as opposed to kerning, which is the spacing in between individual characters. Leading, also known as line space, okay? Stroke is a single linear element that forms a part of a character. And the stem is usually vertical stroke. The arc of the stem, the foot part of the stem that rests on the baseline. We already said the descender goes below the baseline. The ascender goes above the baseline. So any portion of a character that goes above is the ascender. Any portion here, like the P and the Y, that has descenders. Okay. Font publishers, fonts on the web, icon fonts, custom fonts, character sets. We already know that our preferred character set is UTF-8 Unicode. We're going to look at Google fonts today. We don't need to do a CSS recap. It's there for you if you need it. Okay, so, oopsie, that's my music stuff. Let's close that. and go back to here. And we're going to take a look at how you get fonts that you want to use. So I'm going to use Font Squirrel, and I'm going to use Google as my two examples. The first example is where we go and we find some fonts that we like. Now, you've got a ton of fonts in your computer. And one of the things that is tricky about this is if you go to Font Squirrel, you know a font that you're downloading is it's okay for you to use as part of a web page. There's no restriction on that font. So if you download it, one of the things that you have to say, as I'll open this up, you have to attest to is the font is legally eligible for web embedding. If you're downloading a font from Font Squirrel, that font is legally eligible for web embedding. One of the things that I want to point out about Font Squirrel in terms of downloading a font is you might find a really cool looking font, but then when it says download OTF off-site, it's going to send you to another website where you may have to register. That's just something to be aware of. During my demonstrations, I'm always going to make sure that I choose something that I can download right from Font Squirrel, so I don't have to go down a rabbit hole, right? Because sometimes, you know, Font Squirrel will say, wow, this is a really cool font. And then you go to some other site and they want this, that, and the other thing from you, right? So I can see, for example, here, I've got Alex Brush. Maybe I want to do something fancy. So I'm going to click download OTF. And that downloads that font family right here, Alex Brush. I'm going to see in my downloads folder, I unpacked it. And inside of that set, I've got Alex Brush regular TTF. TTF standing for True Type Font. But I can't just use that now on a web page. I have to use the web font generator to help me with that. So I'm going to go over to Font Squirrel. I'm going to now upload that font that I just downloaded from them. Is there another way to do it? I don't know. Maybe. Probably. I don't know. Here we are. There's the Alex Brush regular TTF. I click open. I want the optimal the optimal package that Font Squirrel is going to generate for me. I'm going to say, yes, this font is legal for using on web embedding, and I click download my kit. And sometimes this step takes time. In this case, it looks like I should have it. Let's see, web font right there. So there's my web font kit. Now, when I open up that web font kit, you'll see it has a whole bunch of additional information in here. It's got the specimens, which are, no, this is the specimen files. This is a style sheet that is being used to have these HTML pages point, this HTML page point to this web font. All we have to do is take a look at a couple of things. So I'll open up the style sheet. What is this opening with? I double clicked on it, and now, what did it open with? Let's open with brackets. Oh, I guess it did open with brackets. Okay, here's the style sheet that was generated by Font Squirrel. It says at font face, right? And it says font family. It says the source. It says the format. It says the URL, and it says the font weight and font style. So I'm just going to take this, I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to move it over to my style sheet. Now I'm going to make some changes to it because I have to take those fonts and I have to move them as well. So I'm going to go copy. I'm going to go to my default style sheet in my, I'm going to change this. Well, I'll change this folder name. Okay, module 7. There's my default style sheet. I'm going to paste it up in here. It says at font face, right? That's different than at import. Those are two different things. This is when I have the font locally, right? At import is when the font is on the web. So what we're doing with Font Squirrel is we're taking fonts, we're generating web fonts from that, and we're putting those up in our REPL. So it is a web font because the end user, pardon me, is accessing that by going to your website, and your style sheet is saying, go grab those web fonts from the proper folder. Okay. So right now it says, this is my font family. And it says the source is this Alex Brush Regular, right? And then this, I have two different formats. But what I have to do is I have to take those actual fonts and put them in a folder. So I'm going to take those fonts from here, Alex Brush Regular. I'm going to open up my CS50A folder. I'm going to open up module 7. I'm going to see in my assets, I'm going to drag these two into my assets folder. Okay. So now I have Alex Brush Regular, Web Font, and Web Font 2 in my assets folder. I have to go back to brackets. And here in the path, I have to add assets / Alex Brush Regular. And I want to just see one thing. Oh, no, not there. That's the wrong place for me to put it. Sorry. I have to put it where it says URL, source URL. Assets / Alex Brush Regular. And then I'm going to do the same thing down here. Assets / Alex Brush Regular. Okay, font weight is normal and font style is normal. Okay, here we're over at Google Fonts. And once you get to Google Fonts, you'll see that you can choose, all kinds of different fonts. The easiest way to work with that is, let's say you like Noto. It's got a nice serif. I click on it, choose a specific style. So let's say I want to use Noto Regular. I can choose select this style. Oh, okay, it's over here because I have selected a bunch of them. Okay, so this top right-hand corner is where I see my selected families. Okay, I'm going to remove some of them. I've got a few too many here, and I just want to remove. So right now I have just Noto Serif Display selected, and I could choose link where I would link to it on an individual web page, but that's not what I want to do. What I want to choose is the @import tag, and then I simply import from the URL. And we see this URL is an absolute URL. We're going to the Google website, and it's telling me the family that I'm importing, right? And it's showing me the rule that I'm going to use. So this is super easy. All I have to do is copy this, go to brackets. I'm going to take this one out for now. I'll go back to here and I see my font. It says font family Noto Serif Display. Okay, so I'm going to copy that, go back to brackets, and I'll make that the font family that I use throughout the body of my page. Noto Serif Display Serif. So that means everything on my page should look like no-toe serif display. You'll notice when a font is a single word, like you can see here the word railway, if it's a single word, you don't put quotes around it. If it's multiple words with spaces, you need to have it inside of a string. Okay, so now when I go to Google Chrome, I can see that font family is applying to the whole body of the page. You can see it looks different. Okay, so here's an example of where Google fonts are being applied to the body of the content of the page. Everything is got serifs now. We can see even the text that I use the M tag on, which I italicized, it's using that no-toe display, but italicizing it. I'm going to go back to Google Fonts, and I had a couple of others that I liked. So I'm going to take Railway, and I'm going to choose regular also. Just for now, it's easier to go regular. And notice it added that to my at import rule.
Find that font.
Okay, so I'm just going to jump back to here for a second. And font family Alex Brush Regular. Maybe I didn't use it anyplace. Let's try it that way. And of course, the other thing I have to do is the URL. This sometimes is a little tricky. Is it the HTML page that's looking for the fonts that are in the assets folder, or is this the CSS page? That is sometimes problematic. So I have to go back out to here. And in my assets folder, I did put Alex Brush Regular. It's in the assets folder. But you know, my concern is, am I going from default CSS to find the asset, or am I going from home and habitat to find the asset? I should be able to figure that out now. So I'm going to go to my home page. No, I'm going to go to my default style sheet, and I'm going to add that. Oh, I moved it out. Sorry, folks, I'm panicking just a little bit today. Okay, I put my font face back in here. I'm looking for Alex Brush Regular. I'm going to my H1, H2. I'm going to put it there in my Railway. I'm going to run it. And pop it out. Okay, I see it's not picking it up. So I'm going to look here at the source, and I'm going to assume that since it's at the style sheet, that I have to go out of this directory, which means up, and then to asset. So I'm going to put ..
Yeah.
.. Run. Yes. Hallelujah. Okay, very, very, very important, and great to finish this up with this. And I'm going to even make a note on the assignment instructions page. Make sure that when you're using your @font face and your @import, well, not the @import, because that's going out to an absolute URL in Google land, right? But when you're using your @font face, the two things, and it does show in the video, even though not when Mr. Diamond was panicking during class lecturing, but in the very calm video that he put together alone, it was perfect. So number one, after you get your font face code that you get from the font scroll generator, you put that in your style sheet. But then when you're pointing to the source, you're going from the CSS file to find where the fonts are located. That's the key takeaway that I will put on the assignment page. Make sure that your source URL points to the location of your font in reference to the style sheet page that has the code in it. Okay? Whew, I'm glad that worked at the end. That's everything that we need for next week. You do want to start on that. Like I said, this web font tutorial does that seamlessly. Mr. Diamond during live time does not. The class 7-8 discussion, the web development typography in the web, you're starting that, and you're making sure to familiarize yourself by downloading the lecture slides from here. Okay, anybody have any questions about the use of the font face or the at import?
I did have a question just about the behaviors page. I was curious if we're still permitted to cut, paste text for the content, or
yeah, the cut and paste for the content and the image is fine. Really, you know, this whole first half of the semester where we're focused on nomenclature and skills-based learning, HTML, CSS, web fonts. We're not too concerned about developing our own content. For the second half of the semester, when you create your entire website, it's going to be all homemade.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
One quick question about the at font face directive.
Yes.
When we specify that, I see we're specifying font weight and font style. Do we have access to the whole family when we download,
yes,
or only what
when
we
you
specify?
download some of them. Good question, David. When you download some of them, like I've downloaded over here, Roboto, and you see I have all of these. What I have to do with something like this entire set, I have to generate, I have to go through the font scroll generator and generate all of that. So you can access all of these. And of course, the other way, you can, this is how it's going to be seamless. But if you wanted to, you know, just do a algorithmic version of that font when it's not normal, you could use 100 through 900 as your font weights, and as your font styles you can use any of the options associated with font style, such as, where is our font style showing up in here? Well, italic, normal are two of them. Emphasis is another. I don't know why it's not showing up font style. Probably will show up as font as all my choices right after I get off here. But yes, you can generate the weights algorithmically by typing in 100, 200, all the way up to 900, or light, normal, heavy. All of those are options. When you download fonts from the font squirrel, some of the font families will have a whole big set. And if you wanted to make, if you wanted to be accurate in terms of not generating a slant algorithmically, then you're going to run the font squirrel generator for each of the individual fonts. Okay.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, any other questions, folks? Okay, people, I'm off to the airport and pick up somebody, and I will, please make sure to shoot me an email. If you have any questions, I'm happy to meet with you at a time of your convenience, okay?
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. See you guys all next week, and I appreciate you coming. Bye-bye.
Thank you.